Welcome, everybody, to Talking Fates, the Star Wars podcast where we discuss another Star Wars podcast, specifically Duel of the Fates, a podcast in 9 parts based on the alleged Derek Connolly Colin Trevorrow draft of the Star Wars Episode 9 script. I'm John Murray, co-host of Star Wars TV Talk, along with my TV Talk cohort, Zach Logan, and we are joined this week by Duel of the Fates voice talent Amy Henkel, who plays Rose Tico in this 5th episode of the limited run 9-installment podcast. All right, Zach, take it away.
Well, first, I just want to thank Amy for joining us today. We're super excited to have you today, Amy.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So how did you get involved in the project? Do you know Jamie or friends of friends, or how did that all come about?
I'm actually curious to know where everybody else came from. I've known Jamie for a long time. We went to the Humber Comedy program together back in 2003. And then actually after that was done, we were in a sketch troupe together, and we went down to LA for 3 months to take the groundlings together in LA.
Okay.
And I've known him since then.
Yeah, Jamie had mentioned that he'd done lessons at the groundlings. I was wondering how his path somehow led him down there and then back to Toronto. So you're helping to fill in a few of the cracks along the way.
His path included my car.
Okay, very good, very good. So who were your instructors over at Humber College?
Oh gosh. Louis Beaumander was our acting teacher, and Lauren Froman was our sitcom writing teacher. Rob Trick was our stand-up teacher. Adrian Truss was our improv teacher.
Okay.
And then we had Levi McDougall directed our end show, and he's now a writer at Conan now.
Okay.
And then we had, workshops with like Joe Flaherty came in, and Linda Cash and people like that. So I got a lot out of it.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic program. A friend of mine named Matt went through that program, and someone I interviewed for my other podcast, Robin Duke, who's an SNL alum and an SCTV alum and a Second City Stage alum, was an instructor there for quite a while. So I thought maybe you had some classes under her. What a fun program that must have been.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Since you have a background in sketch and improv, I was wondering if any of that performance background or any of the techniques and skills that you acquired in your improv training, if that helped you to better realize this character during like this remote quarantine voice acting kind of scenario. Were you able to pull on any of the skills that you'd built up over the years from sketch and improv to bring more life to Rose Tico?
Yeah, I would say mostly it was the acting instruction that I've taken as part of doing sketch and improv. We're kind of addicted to taking classes when we get into that. So taking, some voice classes and acting classes that way. Something that happened when we were recording was that I was getting laughs and from the other voice actors at times. And I wasn't trying to do that. But Rose's lines were kind of funny. And then actually I was thinking about it after the fact. And, it's something that I thought of along the way in my journey doing comedy was I think that comedians tend to, well, I realized at some point I don't really like acting because I don't like feeling those feelings. It's not comfortable to make yourself cry and to make yourself angry. And when I'm in real life, I don't want to experience those emotions. And that's why I have a lifetime of cracking jokes to break tension and, running away from those emotions. So I feel like that's one of the differences between someone who's an actor and someone who's a comedian. And then I started thinking about Rose and who she is. And how in touch is Rose with her own feelings, and how earnest is she? And, what we see from her in the second movie,
Last Jedi,
episode 8.
Yep.
I think, we see her true feelings at the end, but maybe she's not so candid about it until that point. So perhaps she is someone who tends to joke away her earnestness.
Well, you did sting the quips and the snarky little comebacks. You stung them like a pro, I got to say, because listening to it, Zach and I were actually commenting on an earlier show that yours was the first performance that really stood out as not just capturing the essence of the character, but we kind of got lost in your performance. Like it was one of the few early on, because you have a role that is basically one of the first scenes of the movie. You were the one that we both zeroed in on as, man, she's really got Rose nailed there, and there's just a lot you're communicating with your performance.
Wow. Thank you so much.
So I don't know if it's all intentional, if it's intuition, or if it's just whatever, the luck of the draw. It was a good character for you to get saddled with. But one way or another, we both took notice that we thought your performance was pretty solid, and you managed to capture the voice quality of Rose pretty good too. And I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just you.
I mean, I practiced it before.
Okay.
And then when we started recording, I mean, we recorded it live-ish, like we were all together remotely, but I could hear everybody. And I was blown away by some of the other actors. And actually, when I had some waiting time, I pulled up some sequences on my phone and had, my other ear with the earbud and, it was studying it a little bit more because I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are so good. Like, I got to up my game. So thanks for saying that.
Yeah, Jamie managed to round up quite a murderer's row of voice talent for, a very kind of ragtag, low budget, kind of just fun side project. Yeah, I'm surprised the kind of quality that these episodes have been turning out, not just in the voice talent, the score and sound effects and everything's been coming together very well. So yeah, we were very impressed, and you honestly were one of the first ones to catch our attention. So you were definitely keeping pace with all the other guys in the mix there. So well done.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, and your improv definitely shows up so well in this, because whenever I looked at your website after we got all the links, I went through it and I was reading up. I'm like, oh, that makes sense, because your comedic timing, even though this was, an audio drama and that's kind of hard to do, your comedic timing was so on point. So I just want to say good job on that, because it was excellent. And it did feel a whole lot like the Rose that we were kind of introduced to in The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that Humber College tuition was money well spent.
Thanks, guys.
So what did Rose mean to you when you first saw her in The Last Jedi? Like, was this a character that you were invested into right away, or did your admiration for her come later?
I definitely was never a Rose hater. I was sort of neutral on her, whereas there were a lot of Rose haters out there. And in my neutrality, I guess, contesting anybody who would be a hater of her. And then when it got to the 9th episode, I definitely was upset that she got dropped for sure. So, I wanted to know more about her. And she's more of a relatable character, I think, like Rey, how many of us are Jedi Masters? Not too many.
Sure.
But Rose is someone who is, she doesn't even have that interesting of a story. Like, she's not, a former stormtrooper or anything like that.
She's a space nerd.
Yeah, you could see yourself in that position of like, hey, if you care enough, you can gravitate towards a position where you're doing awesome things, because she definitely cares a lot for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of hit the nail on the coffin here when you said that she was kind of dropped from episode 9. Because that is true. And I don't think that's necessarily a controversial thing to say, because she had like 45 seconds of screen time. And so obviously in this version of episode 9, she has a much larger role. And we're just about right across the halfway point here. And her role is already just extremely influential into the story. And so what did you think of her role in Duel of the Fates?
Well, I'm one of those people who I wanted to be surprised and listen to the whole thing together and learn the story that way. So I also did not, I was listening to someone else saying they didn't read ahead. And I also didn't, as far as the story goes and how she fits into the whole story, I definitely was happy to see how active she is. And I know that she does one thing towards the end, without any spoilers, that has a huge impact. So yeah, she has her moment for sure. And I'm really glad to see that.
Yeah, we get some revisionist history where, Rose has an opportunity to shine in a way that she didn't get to in the official version of episode 9. So it's a very nice and satisfying what if for anyone that appreciated what Rose brought to The Last Jedi. And I agree. I enjoy Rose's trajectory in this story a lot. I think it's much better writing than just simply giving her homework to do, so she's not allowed to go on the mission. That doesn't seem like a very fitting way to sideline a character that was so prominent in the previous movie. And this feels more right to me personally.
Yeah, because she was active when we first met her. She was working on the spaceship.
Yeah.
And even because I read articles at the time when some people were upset that she had been dropped, and there was a one at one time that where she was saying, the actor was saying that her role had been larger. And it sort of alluded that because we lost Carrie Fisher, she would have had more scenes back at the base. But I still feel like she shouldn't have been back at the base. Like she's a skilled person, and we need her for things like fixing things and problem solving, with them. So yeah, I really feel like she should have been more active. I'm one of those people.
Yep. Agreed. She seemed like too obvious a person to slot into any number of roles in The Rise of Skywalker, where she could have been along on the adventure where they established new characters and you wonder why. Like, wait a minute, like we already have, a female counterpart for Finn who can go on that adventure with him. Like, what's going on here? Did seem a little awkward. So it is nice that she gets her due in some medium.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the reasons that there was backlash against her is that we did, like, I'm pretty sure we did just meet her in the second one, right? Like so we're supposed to be invested in this person who we just met. And, we're still getting to know the first people after all these years, and we're still bonding with them. So to be asked, like, here's somebody new, bond with that. Yeah. I think that's why there was some resistance. That's not resistance. And then, just to drop her in the third one, it just made it worse,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, Rose was such a huge, influential character in The Last Jedi, even though that whole mission was kind of like Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark type of thing, where nothing really mattered in the end as far as how it affected the plot. But she's there, and she does sacrifice herself more or less to save one of our main characters, and she does something similar here. We're kind of left with a cliffhanger with Rose. And so even though I haven't read the whole script, when this scene happened where she kind of falls and I guess we're left to assume that she's dead, I'm just going to assume that she's not, and that she survived that little wound or scuffle, whatever's going on. And yeah, I mean, it's been fun to have this character back, and your performance has been so great. So thank you so much for providing your voice for Rose here.
Oh, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another fun episode. We don't have to dig too much into the plot, and we definitely don't want to venture into spoilers, so we'll veer way away from that. But yeah, just in a more broader sense, the story is really picking up. We've got 2 or 3 plot threads that are all open right now, and they're all getting very exciting. So I'm not sure if you've been listening religiously, Amy, when they drop, but it is well worth a listen how it's been coming together. And we hope that people continue to tune in for the back half of Duel of the Fates, since we've got 4 more episodes to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you that they're edited so well, and the music, and and then also just even getting to know this script that, otherwise people, how many people are going to sit down and read a script, right? But this way the story gets to be told, and the work that went into that script gets to be heard. So I think it's really great.
Yep. It's been a really fun project, and it breathes life into something that a lot of people wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. So it gives them an opportunity to understand the story kind of at a more fundamental level when you've got a bit more production behind it. It's very immersive, very fun. And we're glad to be able to do our part to help get the word out. And it's really nice that Jamie was able to round up such capable people to help bring it to life.
Mm-hmm. Again, I'm really curious where everybody else came from.
Mostly just around Toronto, just people Jamie knew in passing is what I understand from most of the people we've chatted with so far.
Oh, that's great. He's such a social guy too. Like just has an infectious enthusiasm for things. Like, I'm not surprised that he was able to gather up a lot of interested people.
Yeah. And obviously a knack for casting.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had a chance to look over your website, and holy cow, there's some really impressive stuff on there. So would you be willing to tell our listeners about what you do, and then also maybe like your journey between this comedy, improv, and animation?
Sure. Well, you know that I went to Humber in 2003, but I'm actually even older than that. Before that, I went to Sheridan for animation. So,
oh, nice.
Went there. And then at that time, when I went into the school, the animation industry was still coming off that Lion King boom that everybody wanted to be an animator and whatever. And then while I was in school, like, all the studios shut down. There was 0 jobs, people with years and years of experience I'd be competing against. So that's why I was like, I got to do something else, I guess. So I had worked a little bit in animation, but went to Humber. And then when I got out of there, I did animation sort of during the day, doing things that didn't require a lot of ambition, I guess, like paid the bills. But my ambition definitely was in comedy. So I continued doing, I went through a stand-up phase where I was doing, multiple shows per night. And then that phase kind of ended when I got into improv. And then it was, the more shows, the better, and the more workshops, the better, and really immersed in that.
What theaters were you affiliated with?
When I did stand up, the farthest I got was at a place called the Laugh Resort, which was on King Street.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, like I took the Groundlings with Jamie, and then came back, did the Conservatory with Second City.
Mm-hmm.
And the highest I got with them was they had it's called House Co now, but back then it was called The Bench. So it was sort of like, you're just this close for the touring company. But and then I also worked for them as teaching children.
Okay.
So that, and with sketch, when the Comedy Bar first opened up, they had the Sketchersons, the Sunday Night Live. And then they also had 2 sort of farm teams going into that. So I was on one of those where we would put on a new show every 2 weeks, and that was called The Assembly. So that was really cool to be at the Comedy Bar when it was first starting up, and things were still in plywood and things
Sure.
like that. So,
well, what a fun path you trod through. Mostly Toronto-based comedy, but even down in LA a little bit. It's a fun world to get involved in, and it certainly brings a lot of experiences and hopefully happy memories along the way.
Definitely. Like, I will never look back and think, what if? Like, I know
Sure.
what if. Like, I fully explored the what if. So, and then at some point, I mean, when I first went to Humbert too, the idea was, well, I know that the part of animation I want to be involved in is story. So if I go to this comedy school and learn writing, at least I'm building up that skill set. And when I go back to story, I'll be an even better story person. I didn't think that I would be bit by the bug, but but at one point I realized around 2013 or so that, I think animation is sort of a stronger path for me. So that's when I started focusing up. And so now I work as a storyboarder for the most part. As far as voices go, the past couple of years, I've been working on a game that he invented the idea of it, the concept of it, and he's the money guy.
Okay.
And then as far as the creative stuff, I mean, I had a huge input in creating the characters, creating the way that the game actually works. It's a storytelling game. So, and then I would do the scratch voices for one of the characters. I have this little kid voice that well, that's not even good. It's like this little kid voice that I do. So, and then when it came time we brought it to the animation studio to get actually done. They were like, oh, we like your voice. Actually, can you be the real voice of it? So that's when the wheel started turning, that I was like, this is like a kind of an obvious thing that, there's the South Park guys and the Family Guy guy that, they create their own shows and they do their own voices in the shows. And maybe this is something that I should explore as far as pitching shows and coming up with characters and that kind of thing. So that's why I got a nice microphone and all that kind of stuff. And we'll see where it goes.
Very good. Did you want to offer your website address for anyone that wants to check out your stuff, or even potentially collaborate with you on some voice work or any of the other multiple talents that you've amassed over the years?
Sure. It's amyoffmodel.com. So in animation, we say on model or off model. So I called it that because my career path has been so off model of what I expected it to be. So amyoffmodel.com. And then there's, a wide range of things there that you can check out.
Excellent.
I encourage our listeners to go to that website, look at some of the stuff that you did, because it was awesome. And we're so grateful that you joined us today. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, until we meet back with our heroes and villains in the next installment of Duel of the Fates, this is Zach Logan signing off from the Resistance.